Hello, I'm CrimsonAce and welcome to Let's Play Castlevania. A bit of a bonus Let's Play, seeing how I actually wasn't planning to do this and the game is short enough to make it one video. This game actually isn't supposed to be this short, they expect you to die a lot more. This game can be quite difficult. But I'll get more into the difficulty later on. What exactly is going on? Well, Dracula rises from the grave once every century and now it's up to Simon Belmont to take him out because it's family tradition. His father did it, his father's father did it, and his children will do so. Luckily we have our family weapon, a whip called the Vampire Killer, so I hope we don't run into any non-vampires and never mind. Sadly, Dracula's castle is pretty big and we're gonna have to fight through a whole lot in order to even make it to Dracula. Luckily the whip isn't the only way we can defend ourselves. By destroying these candles we can sometimes find sub-weapons. Though unlike the whip, the sub-weapons require ammo to use. And the ammo is represented by hearts, which is a bit morbid if I may say so. Hearts can also be found from destroying candles and killing enemies. Though when you destroy candles, the first few weapons you will always get are the two whip upgrades. One whip upgrade to make it stronger, the other one to make it longer. When you die in this game, you will lose your whip upgrades, you will lose your sub-weapons, and your hearts will be reset to 5. But seeing how this is my usual tool-assisted no-death run, you will never see me lose the whip upgrades until the very end where I die once. Up in the top we have our user interface. We can see what level we are in, which is about to change once we go through that door over there. We can also see the number of hearts we have, the P is the number of lives we have, the little red box is our current sub-weapon. We can also see the word player and then a red bar, that is our health bar. The only way health can be refilled throughout the stages is this right here, wall chicken. One of the things that makes this game so hard is that there's only a select few places you can find wall chicken, and that's if you know where they are in the first place. So sometimes, well, a lot of times, you can be at low health, need to find wall chicken and there won't be any. But that's one of the reasons and there's a lot more of it. Another thing that can make this game difficult is that you just don't have quite the means to defend yourself. Yes, you have all the sub-weapons, but most of the enemies, they do a lot of damage, they come in large numbers, half of the time they have projectiles, but mostly the thing is that they're so much faster and have so much more free movement than you do. The sub-weapon adds some variety of attacking, but you can only carry one at a time, so sometimes an enemy is gonna fly from above and the only sub-weapon you have goes downward. Speaking of which, the boss of this area is a flying enemy, so we're gonna need a weapon that goes upward, and luckily we now have one. This is the axe, it goes upward. Luckily all of the bosses always have one weapon that makes them a lot easier to fight, and usually they give you that weapon in the stage before fighting the boss. And if we break the brick right here, we can find a Roman numeral 2, which allows us to have 2 projectiles on screen at the same time. If you already have a 2, you can sometimes find a Roman numeral 3, which allows us to have 3 projectiles on screen at the same time. Sadly, it will always reset back to 1 once you get a different sub-weapon. But now we defeated the boss, we get an orb that refills all of our lives, and we're gonna move on to stage 4. Now, important to remember is that the stage number up in the top can be a bit deceiving, because after getting a game over you don't always go back to the stage you were in. Instead, when you lose all your lives, you're going back to the stage after defeating a boss, and you fight a boss every 3 stages, so you always go back to stages 4, 7 and 10. When you lose 1 life, you go back to the stage you were in, so the doors between stages are essentially checkpoints. Checkpoints for dying, not checkpoints for getting a game over. Checkpoints for getting a game over are always after a boss, so every 3 stages. I said this already. Anyway, we just got my favorite sub-weapon, it's the cross. It does a lot of damage, though I'm not sure if all these sub-weapons do the same amount of damage. But it goes straight forward through all the enemies and then comes back to you, so if the enemy stays on the same horizontal line, it can hit him twice. And also because it moves pretty slowly, it can also hit an enemy twice on one way and then 2 more times on the way back. So yeah, pretty goddamn powerful, just only goes straight forward. Oh, and one of the candles there just gave us a big bag of money! The only thing it does is give you points, just like killing enemies and collecting hearts, but in this game score actually does something. When you get 30,000 points you get an extra life. And here we have the Medusa heads, enemies that keep respawning on certain parts of the stages, and they go in this really annoying swirly pattern that can be a bitch to avoid. Which seems like the perfect timing to talk about the game's controls. There's not a whole lot to it, but it comes back to the fact that you just don't have quite the means to defend yourself, and the reason that this game is difficult is more so because of limitations than actual difficulty. The reason they're called controls is because you're controlling the player, but in this game you have a certain lack of control. Let's start with walking controls. Normally I would call it running controls, but you don't really run. You only have one walking speed and it's not very fast, but that's not too big of a deal. You have a whip attack, but the attack itself is not very instantly. There's always a slight delay because you always thrust his arm backwards before whipping it forward. Wall chicken! Actually it's like that for all the sub-weapons except the stopwatch. Oh, speaking of which, we just got the stopwatch, and we are going to want the stopwatch for the upcoming boss. They are gonna give us other items before we get to the boss, so try to avoid those, and that's gonna happen a lot more often. But I was talking about controls, and I think the most important one where you just have lack of control is the jumping controls. Once you press that jump button, you're helpless. The only thing you get to decide is if you jump straight upward, a little forward, or a little backward. Other than that, you wall chicken! Other than that, you don't get to decide anything. You don't get to decide how high you jump, you don't get to decide the distance of your jump. So again, one of the things that adds challenge to the game is limitations, and I don't think that's a good way of adding challenge. By the way, these things are instant kill, but if you have the stopwatch, you can stop them at the right time. The stopwatch is the only weapon in the game that costs 5 hearts to use. All the other weapons in the game just cost 1 heart. What the stopwatch does is for a short period, stop everything in time. So you get a chance to wail on things before they continue to attack you. I'm actually gonna show it off on these snake heads. The snake heads are pretty much turrets that shoot fireballs at you. If you have the extended whip when running into these things, I recommend standing far away from them so you have enough time to destroy the fireballs they shoot at you and hit them at the same time. Also, I haven't mentioned yet that sometimes you can find bigger hearts that give you 5 hearts instead of 1. Also, something I want to bring up is the music. I really like the music in this game. It's very memorable and it's one of my favorite 8-bit soundtracks. Oh, and very quick, we also just got an item that destroys all the enemies that are on screen at that moment. It's pretty rare. Along with another rare item that we're gonna see later on. But it's boss time! It's Medusa Head! Not the shitty tiny Medusa Head we saw on the stage earlier, but... well, bigger, even more pathetic Medusa Head because we can actually use the stopwatch on her and... just destroy her. Probably the easiest boss in the game, if you have the stopwatch. I always have the stopwatch when fighting her. I never used any other weapon, so I don't know how hard she actually is. But I know she's one of the few bosses we can actually use the stopwatch on, if not the only one. I only now just noticed the little detail that the timer also stops when you use the stopwatch. Though honestly I never really paid attention to the timer because there are just so many other things in this game that can kill you before the timer gets even close to running out. And we just got a new sub-weapon, the Holy Water. It's pretty much the opposite of the axe. The axe goes upwards, this one goes downwards, and it actually leaves a little flame so it can hit enemies multiple times. Ugh, these little monkey goblin things. Least favorite enemy in the game. They jump around a lot and are extremely fast. It's really hard to hit them once they start moving around. In later levels we're actually gonna get infinitely respawning giant ass birds that drop those monkey goblin things from the sky, and then you have like 3 of them following you and they're impossible to hit all 3 of them. And when you kill one of them, they'll just spawn a new one. I'm looking at the background and the era, and the individual sprites are really good, but it's too bad they keep reusing the same one, so it gets repetitive. Did I mention the staircases yet? How when you start moving on the staircases, you lose your ability to jump for some reason, making you even more helpless, since the only way you can avoid things are by slowly moving up and slowly moving down. Oh, and even worse, the staircases are the only way you're allowed to go to the screen that's underneath you. So there are places in the game where you have to use the staircase to go to a screen below you, but if you ignore the staircase and just jump to the screen below you, you die. It counts as a bottomless pit even though you have to go there anyway. Now what else is still on my list of things I need to talk about? Critical hits. There are actually critical hits in this game, where sometimes your whip attack will do more damage than other times, but there's no real indicator for it. The only way you're gonna know if you're dealing critical hits is by looking at the enemy health bar, and that's only when fighting a boss, when suddenly you do more damage than other times. And that's only if you're constantly looking at the pink health bar in the first place. Oh yeah, the pink health bar for the bosses is on screen for the whole time, even though you only fight them once in a while. The only sub-weapon I have yet to talk about is the throwing knife. I showed it off like once earlier in this video, and I don't think I'm gonna use it ever again after this. The throwing knife is, in my opinion, the most useless sub-weapon in the game, seeing how, just like the cross, it just goes straight forward, but unlike the cross, it doesn't come back to you. I think its only appeal is that it goes fast, and that's about it. Ah, this part of the stage, where we just gotta get a whole bunch of snake heads and birds. Once again, the most efficient way to deal with these snakeheads is to have the extended whip and stand far enough away from them so that you can still hit them, but also have enough distance between the two so that you can whip the fireballs even with the whip delay. I say as I get hit by one of the fireballs on screen. And now we're coming up to attention to detail. I really like if you would point your direction in the castle that's in the background right there. You can see a bridge, a castle in the middle, and then a staircase in the sky. That is actually where Dracula is, and it has the exact same layout as the final stage, or the final 3 stages. So I really like that attention to detail. That is the throwing knife right there. And that attention to detail is also reflected in the map screen we get after defeating a boss. Speaking of a boss, we have 2 mummies that throw bandages at you. I tried to experiment with a stopwatch. It didn't work. So I just decide to stand there and whip them until they die. That normally doesn't work, but I guess I just got really lucky. There's also some wall chicken on the left in one of those bricks over there. Either the cross or the holy water would work wonders on these guys, but I don't think I've tried either. In fact, I don't think there's even a cross in the 3 stages that came before. And fucking Christ, my ears! That sound that just... when the timer went to the score counter. What is it with the NES and annoying sounds? Wait, did I mention this is on the NES? Well, I think it's quite obvious, but you'd be surprised how many people you still have to tell that this is the NES. And now we have water, which is pretty much just a bottomless pit, so why is it even water to begin with? But yeah, as much as one pinky toe into the water and it's instant kill. So combine that with tiny moving platforms, add to that horrible jumping controls, multiply that by enemies flying everywhere out of nowhere, and you get fuck! And remember folks, this is after fighting a boss, so even if you get through this, you still have 2 more stages after this, including a boss, and if you get a game over on one of those, well, you're back here. And that's without any hearts or any sub-weapons. I know I've said all of this already, but I just feel like repeating and stretching because combined with the 2 problems with the difficulty I've already mentioned, it also adds that there's just too much of a penalty for when you die. By having to go back to a stage you've technically already beaten, you're not getting better by doing it again, it just takes more time. So in my personal opinion, what I think they should have done is have the checkpoints in between stages have the same ones you go after you get a game over instead of just when you die. But at that point you might be thinking, well then what would be the point of having lives in the first place? Well, you could, when you die you get to keep everything you've collected, but when you get a game over you have to lose all your sub-weapons and hearts. And before you say anything, I realize damn well that why they did what they did to make this game more difficult. Doing it this way would mean you would have to spend more time on the game without them having to spend more time on adding content to the game. And while it works and all, and this game is considered a legacy game because of its difficulty, I just don't think that that is the mindset you should have as a game designer. That is all. Thank you for listening. I'm only like halfway through the video and I already said everything I needed to say. Well, damn it. There is a wall chicken in one of these blocks over here, and like a dipshit I forget to pick it up. There will be a blooper video to this playthrough, and I'll probably show off some locations with wall chicken and other things I missed in that video as well, since I don't think it's necessary to make 2 bonus videos for a let's play that's only 1 video long. I could really go for that wall chicken right about now, because we're about to fight a boss, and wow, this is a really short stage. It's like world's shortest hallway with 2 enemies. But it's boss time. This is the monster of Frankenstein or Frankenstein or some random zombie. But here's what you do. You go stand over here and spam holy water to his face! He also has an invincible monkey jumping around. I know it's probably not a monkey, but they look like monkeys, they move like monkeys, so I'm gonna call them monkeys. You can stun him by whipping him, so he won't bother you for a few seconds, but you'll never be able to kill him. So focus on Frankenstein, because otherwise you're just wasting your time. Also, I hope you managed to hang on to that holy water you got like 2 stages ago, because it's very useful for fighting him, and you don't get it anywhere near him, instead you get other sub-weapons that you want to avoid. And actually, you want to be doing the exact same in this stage. If you don't have holy water from the previous stage already, like I have, you will get a holy water right here, and you want to hang on to that. The reason you want to do this, and I'm gonna spoil a bit here, at the end of these 3 stages there's a really long hallway with hard to kill enemies and Medusa heads flying around. And then you also have to fight a really difficult boss. So what most people do to make it easier on themselves is that they will throw holy water on the hard to kill enemies, because when an enemy is being stunned by holy water, you can technically walk through them without being hit. So then they can ignore the enemies, and when they get to the boss they do the exact same. They spam him with holy water before he gets a chance to do anything right when he appears. I actually didn't know about this trick until recently, and at that point I already recorded the entire game and didn't want to do it again. So I will not be using it and show off that, well, you don't need to use it. You can be just fine, but it might take a while. Actually, I was able to do the final stage of this, including the boss, in one try, and that made me happy, because usually that takes me more than one try. Because it is a really hard boss, and I kinda wanna say I got really lucky, but at the same time, my first time it took me a lot of tries, so by now I really know the boss and know how to deal with him, so it's partly skill. Ooh, perfect timing. This is the golden urn, and it makes us invincible! It's a really rare item that can happen at any time, but not very often. It also makes Simon blink all kinds of colors really fast, which might explain why he was invisible as well for a moment, because my frame rate simply can't keep up with that. But if I'm gonna talk about frame rate issues, I'm gonna wait until I play Sonic 2. Ugh, the shield is gonna look horrible. To go back for a moment, if you wanna use the holy water technique I talked about earlier, they do give you a lot of sub-weapons throughout the stage, so you wanna be avoiding all of those, like that shitty ass throwing knife. I keep calling it the throwing knife, but it's actually called the dagger. I like throwing knife because, well, you throw the thing. I mean, I like calling it the throwing knife. I don't actually like using the throwing knife because there are better weapons in this game, like all of them. Well, maybe with exception of the axe, because the axe only goes upwards. Well, it goes downwards again, but good luck aiming that. So the axe is a bit more situational, but nope. Still hate the throwing knife more. If you go up that staircase, then go to the right and break that wall. There's wall chicken in there. Get it? Why do you not get it? Well, no, wait. I'm at full health. I don't need it. And going for the wall chicken just creates more time in which I can get hit. And I don't like getting hit. Enemies do so much damage. Well, it doesn't look like they do a lot of damage, but if you get hit multiple times, well, 5 plus 5 is 10. Get hit one more and you're dead. Actually, your maximum is 16 units of health, so you would still have 1 left. But that's still a lot of damage, so what did we learn in math class today? Don't get hit. But I think the worst with it is the bosses, where they just do so much more damage than you do to them. Though the worst of it is really the final boss, where you can afford to get hit 4 times, he can afford to get hit like 20 something times. Even though the boss health bar only has 16 units of health as well. Hint hint. But it's not just the final boss, it's all the bosses. Especially the next one. Oh, the next one. Whoa, holy shit, I have like 30 something hearts. 40 something hearts. And you know what? I don't think I end up using any sub-weapons during the hallway. The infamous hallway that is right above us, actually. The one where, once again, you can use the holy water to bypass some of the enemies. And kill the boss really easily. Which I won't be doing. I'll be close to dying. Why am I saying this again? Oh yeah, I forgot to mention the worst thing about the upcoming hallway. The game can crash. It happened to me twice, and I heard it happen to other people, so you would have to restart the entire game just because that fucking hallway that's already bad enough, but now it already has a game-breaking glitch. Just fuck. Oh, wall chicken. Wall chicken makes everything better. Oh, and the red skeletons, you can hit them and then they stay down for a while and then they'll get up, so I think they're unkillable as well, but at least you can stun them for long enough. But they're not really a threat since they don't throw their bones at you like the other skeleton enemies. And this is the hallway! Get that timing down! Trust me, I make it look easy. It's not that easy. They're hard to kill, they do a lot of damage, you have to avoid both the axes and the Medusa heads with limited controls, and there's so much of a penalty for when it doesn't work the first time or the third time. So that room alone literally sums up everything I think about this game. So that's all I need, that one hallway, and to make things worse there's this bitch of a boss. Once again, he just does so much more damage to you than you do to him, and that's if you manage to get to this boss with full health in the first place. He flies around faster than you can chase him, he has a bunch of projectiles, he's big and does touching damage. I can go on and on, but the absolute worst part is you can die after defeating the boss. It's kinda like the first Mega Man game. I killed the boss, look, it almost happens right here. I killed the boss and the projectiles stay on screen, which can hit me, and if they hit me once, I would have died and would have had to go for all those stages again. Well, if I had 1 life left and got a game over, but still! How the fuck did I do it here on my first attempt? Cross weapon, I love you. You are my favorite sub-weapon in the history of anything. If I could give any advice on that last boss fight, I recommend try to focus on destroying the projectiles instead of avoiding the projectiles. Oh, look at this. The first boss of the game is now a regular enemy. I do kinda like that. It makes you feel like you really progressed, how far we have come. From a gameplay perspective, I can ignore them. I don't have to fight them this time. Well, they do chase after you, but that's why I keep throwing the cross at them, so I can stun them for a moment and make sure they get off screen. And here's another sort of upside, or really the way it should have been in the first place. If you get a game over in this stage, you have to go back to the previous stage. But if you get a game over in the next stage, you stay in that stage, because that is the stage where you fight the boss. So you can keep getting the game overs at the final boss, and you will still be at the final boss without having to go through the other 2 stages again. Out of breath. There's wall chicken in the wall to the right. I don't go for it because I would just get hit more. And I hate this part of the stage. Infinitely respawning monkeys and birds. I know they're not monkeys. So many deaths. I hate this part. I hate this part. And they just have so much better movement than you do. I'm just repeating myself at this point. Luckily, we're almost done here. We just have the final boss left, and it really is a short game if you know what you're doing and if you can do it perfectly, but we're not at full health. Now we're at full health. However, we just lost all of our hearts, and we're gonna need all of those hearts, and we also are back to the basic whip, and now we're back to the stronger whip, and wait, now we're back to the extended whip. Again, it's always the first 2 upgrades you'll get. But hey, what am I doing here? I'm going back, even though I was right in front of Dracula's room. Well, like I said, we're gonna need about 30 or 40 hearts. And if we keep going up and down the staircase, the candles will respawn and we can get those hearts. Yay. That's a good failsafe on the game designer's department. I'll give him credit where credit is due. I love a good failsafe. I keep doing this for a while because, again, we are gonna need a lot of hearts. So in the meantime, notice how this is a staircase in the sky leading up to a floating tower. Sounds familiar? Well, it should, because I was talking about it like 10 minutes ago. This is the stage we saw in the background of another stage. I also pointed out a bridge, and you may remember 2 stages ago we were on a bridge with all kinds of bats flying around. So, again, really good attention to detail. I love that. Suddenly I'm ending this playthrough with a whole bunch of positivity after all that complaining like 2 minutes ago. Maybe I'm just glad that we're almost done with the game and I'll never have to look at this thing ever again. Speaking of which, we have all the hearts we need, so it is time for a boss fight that somehow manages to be both boring and frustrating. It's Dracula. For pure difficulty, I would say the previous boss, Death, was a lot harder. Dracula isn't nearly as active as Death was. Here's what he'll do. He'll teleport around, shoot 3 fireballs at you, and, well, that's about it. It doesn't take a lot of time to figure out how you're supposed to time it correctly to both jump over the 3 fireballs and then whip him in the face. Which is the only place you can hit him, and you can only use the whip, no sub-weapons on the face. Now that sounds easy enough, right? Here are the problems. Problem 1. He only has to hit you 4 times if you're at full health. You have to hit him 16 times. It takes very long and it gets very boring. Hashtag unbalanced damage output. Problem number 2. You see how he teleports around like that? Well, sometimes he likes to teleport right where you're standing without having enough time to walk away from him. Hashtag bullshit. And this is another thing he'll do. You saw right there I jumped a little too early, so he managed to fire the fireballs a little upward, so I got hit by it anyway. That's not really a problem with the difficulty, that's just part of the boss fight that I can deal with. But going back to the 2 problems I just mentioned, again, it's not difficult for the right reasons. At the beginning of this boss I summed up his pattern and it sounds really easy on paper, but that's where it should sound difficult, not in the side notes. And it takes so long! I've said everything I needed to say about this part of the boss fight, so I'm gonna get ahead of myself a bit. There is a second phase. Dracula is gonna transform in the most ridiculous thing you can ever imagine Dracula transforming in. He's really big, still does 1/4 of damage just by touching him, and he can corner you, so sometimes there's no way to avoid getting hit. And that part of the boss fight is also why we needed all those hearts. We can't whip him, we have to use the holy water. Luckily we got the holy water from the candle in the corner. So at the very least they always give you the holy water. Doesn't make the rest of this bullshit any more tolerable. Oh, it's about to happen. We emptied his health bar. Have another one. Okay, boss pattern. He will jump around and then he'll shoot 3 fireballs at you. Luckily it takes a while before he does that because the holy water stuns him. Here's what you need to do. And I actually figured this out during this boss fight you're looking at right now. Like in the middle of this recorded fight. You can hit the fireballs he shoots at you. And there's a high chance that when you hit them, you will get a Roman numeral 2. So then you'll be able to throw 2 holy waters at the same time, but you need to space them out. So when you time it correctly, he'll keep being stunned by holy water after holy water, and that way he'll never be able to escape. Then you've got him in a lock, and you've won the boss fight. I think it happens right here. Yes, look, I'm carefully timing throwing the holy water, that way when the previous one runs out, he'll get hit by the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and he's stunned forever, and I almost got hit there. Would have died, would have had to do it all over again, but I beat the boss, I beat the game, and we're done, and we get a health refill even though we don't need it because the game is over! Yes! Woo! Time for final thoughts. Well, I think you've heard it more than enough times already. Unbalanced damage output, too much of a penalty for dying, and just too much limitations on your movement and attacking and such. With that said, I still kinda enjoy this game. I don't know why, and I know it's not good of me to say that because it's not good. It's not well designed, but I still enjoy it. And from someone who is very into game design, it pains me to say that, and I'm not even sure why I kinda like it. I get a certain satisfaction in defeating enemies in this game. I'm not sure if it's because of the feedback or maybe it is because of the limitations. I kinda like jumping around in this game because it's so different. It's different in a bad way, but it's... I don't know, leave me alone. With that said, I hope you enjoyed this little bonus Let's Play. I'm CrimsonAce, thank you for watching and good night!